Thank you so much for joining me on Ethocast. And joining me is one of my good colleagues from Greek University, Sarah Callazzo. I don't know if you know this about Sarah, but she's like a serious traveler. I look at her IG, she's off somewhere, she's back somewhere, then she's off somewhere again, because she's just fabulous. She's one of these fabulous types of people. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's good to have you. So one of the things you're gonna find, talking to my good folks here who check out Ethocast, one of the things you're gonna find, I'm definitely gonna put a few of my Greek University colleagues on Ethocast because, first of all, the obvious reason it's a Greek life podcast, Greek University, but then also. When I got a chance to meet Sarah and some of the other colleagues, I told everybody after I heard their stories, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to get every single one of you on a podcast that I'm doing because everybody just had these really, really interesting stories, and we're gonna get to Sarah's story in just a little bit. But Sarah, first things first, you are an alumna of Rhode Island, right?
Yep. Go Rhody, University of Rhode Island 2021. Oh, so
Okay,
long ago. Yes.
yeah, very cool. And then you are a member of Zeta Tau Alpha, correct?
Yep.
All
Zeta
right,
Tau Alpha.
cool.
Yep.
What got you interested in Greek life in the first place?
I didn't really know if Greek life was for me when I was going into college. I never was against it and I was never like, oh my God, I can't wait to join. So Rush happened at the beginning of right at the beginning of the semester, probably like the second week. And I was like, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And everybody always said, finding your sorority is like putting on your wedding dress. Like, you just know. And I walked into all the houses and I was like, wait, I like all of them. Like, everybody's really cool. So I struggled during recruitment because I was like, I don't know where I'm supposed to end up. I don't know where do I go. And then every time I went to Zeta, I just wanted to I was the best version of myself when I walked into that house, and it was organic and it was natural. And I joined kind of just thinking that I was going to be, along for the ride. I would go to all the events, but I didn't really think that I would have, any position of power. And obviously looking back on it 5 years later, that was not the case. And it was honestly a decision that I didn't realize I was making at the time, but it was hands down the best decision I ever made.
What do you mean when you said you were the best version of yourself? What does that even look like for you?
I just noticed that I was not like I snort when I laugh, and like I didn't care that I was snorting while I was laughing. I was like, I'm so happy, one, that I'm laughing this hard, and two, that I'm not afraid to be me. I was confident when I was talking about, what I was doing in high school and my friends and all that. Like, I just had really great conversations and I was just so in the moment. I wasn't overthinking anything and I was just really present. And that was something that I struggled with at the time. So I was just a happy, bubbly person and none of it was fake, which was really cool because I felt like I was, going into college. It was like, all right, who am I going to be? How am I going to act? What am I going to do? And I was like, cool, this is who I am. And they kind of really helped me figure that out without even doing it on purpose.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So, and your sisters, you felt like they were right there with you?
Yeah, I had a bunch of different girls talk to me during recruitment. And the thing that I liked about them was everybody was so different, but they all had like a very similar like spark in their eye. Like everybody came from all different walks of life, all different passions, all different stories, but they all had just like this genuine goodness about them, which was really cool. And I was like, yep, those girls, they're mine.
Was there a particular reason that you selected Rhode Island?
I flipped a coin. And I'm not even
Really?
kidding.
So it was between Rhode Island and who else?
University of Delaware.
Okay.
Rhode Island I'm from New Jersey. It was the farthest school that I applied to.
Yeah.
And I was very nervous to leave home. And I was sitting with my mom and she gave me a coin and she said, heads is Rhode Island, tails is University of Delaware. Flip the coin. And before I looked at it, she said, what do you hope it lands on? And I said, I hope it lands on Rhode Island. And she said, okay, you're going to Rhode Island. I never saw what it landed on because there's a theory that when you flip a coin, you know what you want it to land on. You just need somebody to validate you. You need the universe to push you in that direction. So she's like, you want to go to Rhode Island, you're going. And I went.
Okay, so now I'm going to be sitting around tonight flipping coins just to see what happens.
I flip coins for I picked like I flip my coins for everything and like major decisions. And It works like 9 times out. And I've tried it on like one. It works on everybody except one person. I was like, "What do you hope it lands on?" They were like, "I don't know." That's why I flipped the coin. I was like, "You're not doing it right." I was like, "What do you hope it lands on?" So yeah, flipped a coin.
It's like you ruined the coin mojo.
Ruined the
We can't
whole
do
thing. I
this.
was like, it landed on tails. How funny you, Dell. Like whatever. So yeah, it was fun.
So one of the things that I found really interesting about you is how you deal with the topic of eating disorders. But in your bio, it says that you used to wear, quote, smaller jeans and, quote, a fake smile. So
Mhm.
why was that? And have any of the members who that maybe you hung out with, or maybe women from other sororities, did you see similarities, or did anyone, or has anyone ever told you, when you talked to them about this, that they identify with you?
A lot of people that I've talked to, I am very proud of myself for the progress that I've made, but I'm very proud for how I'm able to articulate it because I feel
Yeah.
like I'm able to put words to a lot of people's emotions that they don't necessarily know how to put into words. So,
Mm.
or things that they're feeling because I was there and because I am to a similar age of people in college still. I'm like, I know what you're doing behind closed doors. And I know that when you are, puke and rallying, I know
Mm.
what you're doing. It's not because you drank too much. And I know that you're not eating all day because it's not because you want to get drunk faster. It's because you want to, skip a meal because your friend is skipping. Like I know all the tricks that they do, and I know all of the how eating disorder behaviors are so normalized on college
Hmm.
campuses that I'm
Mm.
kind of able to like throw it back in their faces and be like, I know what you're doing, and that really stops people dead in their tracks a lot. And just I felt that I needed to be a certain way, and I know that a lot of everybody, not just females on college campuses, males, all genders, feel a need to fit in, to look a certain way. And the more that I share my story, the more people come up to me and they're like, I really needed to hear that. Whether it's relating to my story directly or it's them, um, taking something and applying it to their own life. A lot of people are feeling that who they are isn't good enough and that what they look like is the most interesting thing about them when in fact it's the least interesting thing about them. And that's something that I say probably 80 times a day. What you look like is the least interesting thing about you.
Hmm. That's actually kind of bad on me because I said women, but I should have said people because men go through this too. So how
Mhm.
many young men have said, okay, I don't know how to talk about this, or how many have said, I'm so glad you said this because now I feel like I can deal with it.
I almost have more powerful conversations with the younger men than I do with
Mm-hmm.
the women because it's often the first time that they've ever vocalized this.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time that somebody's able, like, they felt comfortable to sit down with somebody and say, this is what I'm going through. Because even if they have a great group of friends in their fraternity, sometimes if a if their friend has never been in that position with themselves, they might not know how to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a soundboard, but they don't really have anybody saying something back to them. So it's really nice being able to take what I've been through and give them that safe space and allow them to vent, cry, scream, whatever they need, because it's way more prevalent on college campuses than I think anybody realizes.
So I want to backtrack a little bit. So you mentioned that you felt like you were the best version of yourself when you met the Zeta women, and then you went through this phase um, where you really, really decided to come face to face with your eating disorder.
Mhm.
So how was the timeline on that? Did you develop an eating disorder, or did you have one and you felt like maybe you could confront it a little better as you became a member of your sorority?
I didn't know that I had an eating disorder. So looking
Ah.
back on it, I had one probably my junior year of high school and it stuck
Mm-hmm.
with me throughout. And I didn't realize I was never that person that I never thought I was sick enough. There's such a
Mm.
large spectrum of eating disorders that the media only portrays a small piece of that I was like, I'm not skinny enough to have
Mm-hmm.
anorexia. I'm not purging enough to have bulimia. Everybody goes on diets. Nobody really seems concerned. In fact, everybody's telling me how great I look. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized how severe my negative body image, my body dysmorphia, and my eating disorder tendencies were. probably, I was also on the dance team at college. I was on the URI Ramettes. So I just became this like superwoman person and played this persona of chapter president, dance team, has a job, has an internship. And I was just I was wearing this mask for so long that I kind of forgot who I was. And that's not to say that I was faking, because I loved being on the dance team. I loved my sorority. I loved everything I was doing. But I was just so surface level, and I didn't let myself enjoy any of the moments. And I would go home at night and just be miserable with myself, and no gene size or award could fill the void that I was looking for. And it wasn't until I entered recovery that I was able to find that genuine happiness. And I started sharing my story, and I became a better sister that way. I became a better member of the dance team that way. I became a better person because I was sharing my story, helping other people, and just really becoming who I was supposed to be.
Now, where on the spectrum of eating disorders were you?
I suffered with anorexia more in my younger years. I would say junior year to sophomore year. And then sophomore year was when the bulimia started. Because it's kind of like, I like to think of it as like I was bouncing back and forth. Like I stopped restricting and I started eating, and that scared me. So I wanted to get rid of it. So then I would purge. And then when I didn't want to purge anymore, then I would go back to the restricting side. So I'm like kind of in a limbo. I have a great team of people that help me in my recovery, professionals, with therapy, that I'm in a relatively stable place right now. But I bounced back and forth for a hot minute there. And it was, it's a very isolating journey. So to be able to talk about it is really scary, because I didn't know if anybody would say, you're crazy, you're the only one that's going through that.
The views expressed on Ethocast do not necessarily reflect the views of the hosts, guests, or any entities with which this podcast's participants are affiliated. Questions, comments, email eddie@eddiefrancis.com. You're listening to Ethocast. I'm Eddie Francis, and we're talking to Sarah Callazzo, and she is one of my colleagues with Greek University. And, as I was listening to your story, it reminded me somewhat of my story in a way, because I joined my fraternity, and I just remember that I went through this massive identity shift. I was unhappy about, where I was, and then on top of all of that, I felt like a failure at a lot of things, because I just didn't do things I thought right enough. And so I wasn't the chapter president that I wanted to be, and I was a chapter president twice. And so I wasn't the chapter president that I wanted to be. And then my grades started to take a nosedive. And then on top of that, I started to get worried about, well, what am I going to do after college? So I started to become afraid of that. And then I was just frustrated, just period, because I didn't want to be in New Orleans. And so it was all of these things happening all at the same time with me. But I'm always very careful to tell people, because how, you have those people who say, oh, yeah, people change so much when they go Greek. And I'm going, yeah, but Alpha wasn't the reason I changed. What really I think happened was, I think because of where I was, I started to, in my own way, come face to face with things that were frustrating me that I didn't want to face.
Yep.
And so I just started going through this massive transition, and I didn't know how to handle it. You wisely were able, you got help and all stuff. I didn't get help. So I just struggled my way through college. I clawed my way to the end, to the finish line to graduate. Yeah, man. So were your sisters supportive of you?
I was very lucky, because everybody in Zeta and a lot of the Greek community not only accepted it, but like they were very empowering. And I don't know if it was because, nobody else was really talking about it, and because I was in such a high position at URI, that they were like, wow, that's kind of cool that she's talking about this, and that, is maybe that'll give me the chance to talk about it. But it really helped the sisterhood of my chapter, and I hope that it helped of those of other chapters. Because whether it was struggling with eating disorders or not, it was just, I'm going through this. And I always made sure to tell people that even if it's not eating disorder, you can talk about whatever it is that you're going through. If it's alcoholism,
Mm-hmm.
if it's depression, if it's any, whatever it is. And it just really made taboo topics not so scary to talk about.
Mm.
And I was just really, really lucky that everybody was so supportive. Obviously, there were some people that, had their comments to say, and a
Yeah.
lot of, some frat boys didn't always understand, some fraternity members, but it wound up being really great because, people that had a lot to say about it, we wound up connecting later years on. And like, I got to say my piece to them. They said their piece to me. And we were kids that didn't understand. And we were handling
Yeah.
something that was way bigger than all of us. And it was a big learning curve for everybody. It like solidified why I was doing what I was doing. And it was a really great learning experience for them. I'm like, wow, why did I think that? Why did I whatever? So it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies, but it
Yeah.
was, I would go back and do it any day.
Yeah. How about that? Greeks are human too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know what? So, is that something? Because, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I do think that when you become a member of a fraternity or sorority, that there are people who are not members who they look at it and they start to feel like there might be a little bit of perfectionism going on there for the people who are members. And then when we do human things, people are like, "Oh, look at him." Well, I thought all alphas were smart. I'm just like, I mean, yeah, I just made a mistake though. And so
Yep.
do you encourage people to talk about their insecurities, to talk about their disorders, to talk about whatever it is that's really keeping them off kilter, and to not be afraid of the judgment that might come along with it?
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head. Like we're all humans, and we're held to a high standard. But I think that we also hold ourselves to a high standard, and that's why
Yeah.
we joined Greek life because we weren't necessarily afraid of that. Like we knew what we were
Mhm.
capable of, and you have that kind of self confidence, and you surround yourself with people that are gonna, lift you up. And when you do mess up, you got your people that are going to be there to, help you through it because we're all going to do it. And I think that it's just really, I think to build good friendships and build relationships, you need to be able to forgive yourself. You need to be able to be yourself. And you don't have to love every single aspect of every single person on your college campus, but it just really builds a layer of respect when you're able to know, hey, this is what this person's going through. Like
Mhm.
some member may just be really aggressive towards people, and you have no idea that it's because she's not taking her medication and she's going through a really hard time at home. And like, not that that's an excuse to be mean to people, but it's a lot, it's just builds for a lot more understanding within your organization when you know what people are going through and what's going on behind closed doors. Because I mean, there were 200 girls in my chapter. There was so
Yeah.
much going on that it was easy to hide what was going on in my life. And once I started letting people in and showing them that and not being afraid, it was a really freeing moment.
Inquiring minds want to know, what is it like to be a chapter president with 200 members?
It
I mean,
was,
listen, I had like 10.
it is, so my presidency, I was Sunshine Chair freshman year, VP1 of programming, and then president. So I was president through half of COVID, through the Black
Mm,
Lives Matter movement. And the reason why I became president was because my chapter president passed away. And I was her vice president, and I was elected. Not directly after, I didn't take over. I was elected for the term afterwards. And I didn't think I could ever be president. And I literally said, while I was going through recruitment, I don't see myself as a leader. Like, I'll never be president, but I could be something small. And I
mhm.
became president 2-3 years later. So I had to handle a lot of real world issues. And I think if you talk to some chapter presidents, they're going to have a very different perspective than I do, because my the things that I was dealing with were not, planning formal, raising money for philanthropy week, doing things that, chapter presidents are expected to do. We were not on campus. I had to
Mhm.
handle people with COVID. We had all of these things. Everybody was across the country because nobody was on campus. So my experience was a lot. It
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm very proud of, and it definitely made me who I am today. But it was a very exhausting and trying time.
Yeah.
It was very rewarding, but it was 200 girls having to worry about at all times was something that I don't know if I could do right now. It's like 55 girls living in the house. That's a lot of girls under one roof. So
That
yeah,
is a lot of people under. Wow. Okay, so all right, obviously dedicated to Zeta, and you were in this process of becoming authentically you. How did you balance those two things?
I gave myself a lot of grace.
Mm.
I tried to give myself some me time. I graduated college with a 3.96 GPA, and looking back on it, I was like, was it really worth crying over getting an A minus instead of an A? Like, I'm very much a perfectionist, and I tried to let go of that as much as I could. And it took a little bit of time that I'm in a much better place with it now, but I just gave myself a lot of grace and let myself be me and kind of took my mask off, took my cape off at the end of the day and was like, this is who I am. This is what I wasn't elected president because of what I look like. I'm not on the dance team because I'm of my size jeans. I'm on the dance team because of how I perform. I'm president because of my heart and because of my brain. And I really took that and kind of ran with it and tried to balance being a leader, being a student, but also being as a person and letting myself know that, being Sarah was just as important as being a leader on campus.
Mm. You're listening to Ethocast. I'm Eddie Francis along with Sarah Callazzo, and we are talking about Sarah's journey to becoming authentically who she is and how she did that through college and how she's talking about it now to students. And so you said you didn't necessarily see yourself as someone who could be in a leadership role like a presidency. How did you make that transition from someone who didn't see yourself there to actually doing the job?
A quote that's been very prominent in my young adult years was first you become a part of it and then it becomes a part of you. And
Mm.
it could be something as small as, you know, a group project where I'm like, wait, what do you mean the semester's over and we don't get to talk all the time now? Like I'm very much an empath. I love, people and being connected to things. And when I joined Zeta, I thought it was just, an organization, a sorority. We're going to do some good in the world. We're going to have some fun. I'm going to make some friends. And then I was brought as a future leader to our national conference or national convention at the end of my freshman year. And I was like, I love this. This is great. And Olivia Dixon was president when I was a freshman, and she was an incredible leader and person and role model. And then Dominique Franco, my dear friend, she was my president. I was lucky enough to be her vice president. She, really encouraged me to run for executive council that first year to become VP when I didn't think I could do it. And then after she passed, I was like, I'm going to make her proud. And we had a lot of plans on what we wanted to do together. So I said, I'm going to finish what she started. And she loved Zeta and she loved our philanthropy, and she was going to school to be a nurse and just wanted to change the world. And I was like, I'm going to make sure her legacy lives on. And that was, she really helped me and motivate me into becoming a leader. And I wouldn't be where I am now without her.
Mm. Of all the topics that you talk to audiences about, is there one that you just could talk to them all day long about it? I'm not going to ask you what's your favorite because that's always an unfair
I
question.
know. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I talk about everything for hours and hours and hours. I'm going to try it on you. My favorite thing that I've ever said to somebody. What's your favorite type of music?
Oh, for me, oh man, that's so crazy.
Or your
Hip
favorite
hop.
artist? Hip hop?
Yeah, hip hop is my favorite.
I don't like hip hop.
Okay.
Does that change the way that you feel about hip hop?
Nah.
Is there anything that I could really say or do to make you think that, you shouldn't like hip hop music?
No, not really. Not much.
So how come when somebody says they would like you more if you had a different body, you're so easy to change your mind?
Mm. Oh,
How come
wow.
when somebody says, I'd like you better if you were blonde, you'd be prettier if you were skinnier, you know, if your skin was whatever, we're so much easier to believe it. But when it comes to something else, we're so easy to stand our ground. And when somebody criticizes it, it almost makes us more confident in it. That's my favorite
Wow.
thing to tell. That look in their eye of people, and they're like, she got me.
That
Got
is
it.
pretty.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's kind of mind bending.
Uh-huh. That's my favorite thing. And then wherever it goes from there, but that's my favorite
Yeah.
thing to say to people, because it really, their mind goes from their favorite music to their hair color and their eye color
Yeah.
and all the things that they never think about. And they're like, I wouldn't change anything about myself. So what do I really want to change? I
Hmm.
want my stomach to be a size 8 instead of a size 10. Okay, is that really that big of a deal? Like, it blows your mind, which is really fun.
So that brings up an interesting question. When people do, and this happens a lot in Greek
Mm-hmm.
life, I don't care what kind of fraternity or sorority, and a lot of people have what we call a glow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll get in and they'll change their looks. And so what about those people? Because sometimes those people get really, really criticized for wanting to change the way that they do their hair. They want to change the way that they dress, and even the way that they carry themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are outside of Greek life can become very critical of that. So what is that fine line between someone who is doing it for someone else and they're doing it for themselves? What have you seen?
I think the difference is that it's not. I think everybody thinks it's a fine line, and I don't think it is. I think it's a
Okay.
spectrum, and I think it's a gray area. And I think that also, you enter college when you're 18, you leave when you're 22. That's a big, like,
Yeah.
you physically change a
Yeah.
lot. You mature a lot. A lot of times it's people's first time away from home. If you had uniforms in high school and now you're in college, you're going to try out a bunch of different things and see what you
Hmm.
like and see whatever. So I think some of it is, one, very natural and very organic. And another part of it is, it's okay to want, like, I cut my hair because Olivia Benson, my favorite actress, Mariska Hargitay, cut her hair. That's not saying that I am not confident in myself or because I want to be something that I'm not. It's just when it goes into a deeper level of, I'm not good enough as I am. It's
Mm.
one thing to be like, hey, I'm going to try wearing different colors to see how I feel. Or, everybody in my chapter all has the same pair of ripped jeans and I really like the way they look on them. I want to get a pair of ripped jeans. It's when it's, I can't wear what I want to wear because they're better and because I
Ah.
won't be accepted if I don't. I think that when it's more personal, that's when it's
Mhm.
something that we need to look into. But
Mhm.
if it's, like, trends are a thing and trends are natural, and I don't think that, fashion trends or beauty trends are necessarily a horrible thing. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of when you start to turn on yourself and lose who
Yeah.
you are.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Mm.
don't think buying everybody's wearing flannels. I want to wear a flannel. That's fine. But if it's, I'm not going to feed myself, or I'm going to stop talking to this person because they're not cool, that's when it
Yeah.
becomes a greater issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So one last question. What are some of the thoughts that you have for folks who are members of fraternities and sororities who are struggling with disorders or who are struggling with hidden disabilities? What are some of the thoughts that you have for them so that they can be themselves and at the same time honor the mission, the goals, the values of their fraternities and sororities, and then still feel as if they're doing okay at the end of the day?
My best day with an eating disorder does not even compare to my hardest day in recovery.
Mm.
And that says a lot, because my hard days in recovery are hard. But I would still rather be going through that than have a good day with an eating disorder. And
Mm.
that goes for everything: depression, anxiety, any other kind of thing that somebody else might be going through. There is no such thing as sick enough. And if you You know yourself better than anybody. You are the only one that has to be with you 24/7. You look at yourself in the mirror. You need to be your biggest advocate. You need to be your best friend. You got to give yourself some grace along the way. You're a student. You are making sure your room is clean. You need to make sure you have food. Like, being a human is really hard. Like, it's so normalized that, like, hey, I'm just going to clean my house and do laundry and go grocery shopping and do all this, go to work and have a social life. Like, that takes a lot of energy. And I think celebrating the little wins is so important, especially when you're in college, because everybody's worried about the finals and the big events, that it's like, no, let's just focus on one day at a time. You got to find little joys in every day. If you're not happy with who you are, then that's enough in my book for deserving of some kind of help, whether that's therapy, whether that's medication, whether that's whatever. If, you're listening to Eddie's podcast and he ever says something that hits a little too close to home, go to a trusted professional. Like, it is so cool that somebody is dedicating their entire life to help people just like you. Like, therapy is a badge of honor. I love therapy. I had 3 therapists in college. I loved it at the same time. Like, it's, what you look like is the least interesting thing about you. Who you are is enough. And your friends love you for who you are, not because of what you do or what you look like. And, just give yourself some grace along the way. And younger you, no matter where you are right now, younger you would be very proud of where you are. So
that is good stuff. So if anybody wanted to reach out to you, how can they get in contact with you?
They can reach out to me through Instagram. My Instagram is sar.calla, sar.calla. I tried to be cheeky and shorten my last name, like celebrity. Also on the Greek University page, you can also find Eddie and all of our super cool friends. GreekUniversity.com, all of our talks that we do, our whole team is up there, our bio, everything that we do. We're all going to save the world one day, so might as well be a part of it now. You knew us fun.
All of Sarah's contact information is in the show notes. And Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on Ethocast. I enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for having me. We're going to have to do it again sometime.